So now we have on this segment, because social media is such a a thing with us now, and we see AI in a different way. And Dr. Prakash put on a session a couple weeks ago, and it was at a time as I was constructing this, and I said, wait a minute, what he did then was just really superb. And I invited him to come, and then he said, I said, give me a recommendation. And he said, Brett Coppenger. I said, okay, very great, because these are two Tuskegee University faculty. So I'm going to ask Dr. Prakash to go first, and then Dr. Coppenger, and then we will have Dr. Gwen West at the end. So let me introduce you first to Dr. Prakash. I'm going to, as a moderator, I'm going to limit. I've said enough. I'm going to limit my chat and just kind of stay put in the conversation. So Dr. Channapatna is Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Tuskegee University. His research expertise in genetic improvement of food crops and of importance to developing countries and training of scientists and students in plant biotechnology. Dr. Prakash plays an active role in social media in promoting awareness and debate of issues related to agricultural biotechnology. And Dr. Prakash, in the presentation he gave, it was so profound because it was for so many people, we were just in the back saying, wow, because I think he used Morgan Freeman and himself, as a matter of fact, of what AI can do, sort of like the Tom Cruise thing we saw a little while ago. So I want us to get today an introduction, and that's what Dr. John Banger and Dr. Paul Wolpe were doing. Give us an introduction so that we could get our feet wet, because we have a lot to do. So that's Dr. Channapatna. He is actually my direct supervisor over the academic side of the National Center. And then we have Dr. Brett Coppenger. Oops, I'm sorry. My mouse is playing with me. Okay. Then we have Dr. Brett Coppenger. He's Associate Professor of Philosophy at Tuskegee University. He joined the university in 2014 and holds a Ph.D. And an MA in Philosophy from the University of Iowa, as well as an MA in Philosophy from Western Michigan University. He received his BA in Philosophy from Biola University. His primary areas of research are epistemology, the history and the philosophy of science, and the philosophy of religion. In addition to investigating these areas individually, Dr. Coppenger is also interested in the way these areas overlap. As a philosopher myself, I always, and over the Bioethics Honors Program, Dr. Coppenger teaches many of my students. So they always have much to share about the excitement they have in Dr. Coppenger's class. So this, as a matter of fact, this is the first time I think we're actually meeting, even though we work in the same building. So Dr. Coppenger, so good to have you here today. And then we have Dr. Gwen West. Dr. Gwen West, as a matter of fact, she is a recent employee at she was a recent employee at the National Center for Bioethics and Research in Healthcare, because she was the person who Dr. Warren hired to write our public health ethics manual that we were authorized and funded to do from Merck. And so she came in and she took all the raw data that was collected by Dr. Wynetta Wimberly and Dr. Brandon Isom, and she put it all together. And it was, let me tell you, it was a challenge and a task. But she took lemons and she made lemonade. She got her doctorate degree from St. Thomas University, and I met her many years ago when I went to South Florida to work as a pastor and a professor down there. So Dr. Gwendolyn West is her main area is communications, and she has her own network, television network in South Florida. So she's going to bring something unique to us today. All right, Dr. Prakash, the table is yours. You go for it. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Hodge. I'm really delighted to be here, and it is an honor to speak with the esteemed speakers, to follow them, because I really learned a lot from the last 2 hours. This was so enlightening in learning about some of the nuances. And we hear about AI every day, and we talk, whether you turn the computer on, you turn the television on, you open a magazine or a book, we are surrounded by so much of AI uh, issues, and our life is impacted so much by AI that we may not even realize when we are trying to get a Google Map, a GPS, and when our phones, my Siri responds to my voice prompt, and in every many ways, every second, every minute, AI is really dictating so many things we do. But one of the most profound areas where AI is expected to make an impact is really going to be in health sciences. And so I'm glad to be here to explore some of the issues related to what artificial intelligence and machine learning can have on the AI, on the health sector. I want to look at some of the positives of that, as well as the negative. And of course, the most important is the ethical and philosophical overtones surrounding the issue. And I'm really happy and relieved in a way that Dr. Brett Coppenger is going to be speaking on many of that, because I'm really not an expert in many of the areas. I am a scientist, I'm a genomic scientist, and I do recognize the value many of these innovations bring into our research. And at the same time, also, you mentioned teaching and higher education, and Dr. Brett Coppenger is also involved at our Office of Distance Education and Learning. And all of us are very much we have a dual, mixed feelings about this generative AI and the ChatGPT, because I do believe it provides a new tool for professors and students to see how we can use this in harnessing the knowledge. But at the same time, I know it opens up a whole new Pandora's box on the plagiarism issue. So with that, I'll just go ahead and share my screen. So I'm going to talk about the ethics, social media, artificial intelligence, and the language bias. And I'm primarily going to focus on the AI and the social media aspects in the interest of time, and also because of my expertise. And so I set myself to see what can I do to the audience, is to see how to explore how social media can be both harmful and helpful to the society, and talk about how AI can make these problems better or worse. And then we have a discussion time. I want to move along with the audience and follow up with Brett's talk on how we can think deeply about the issues and see if we can come up with some real solutions or policy recommendations. So some of you, and even you, Dr. Hodge, you may have received an email early this morning. I was just opening up my copy of Economist, and it says the doctor will see you eventually. And so I know much of the discussion earlier was regarding that. And if you happen to subscribe to Economist, have that in your library, I definitely recommend reading about it, because, as I mentioned, we have AI and healthcare. We are surrounded by a glut of information. And so again, I asked essentially, I fed that article to ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT to provide me 5 points that I can speak to the audience today. And these are the 5 points that ChatGPT gave. And if you are interested, The Economist is from the 31st of March. So AI can enhance healthcare by improving the accuracy of diagnostics, disease tracking, facilitating better detection and monitoring of health conditions. And I'm personally, I'm aware of many of this. As a diabetic, I wear a sensor that 24 hours, it monitors my blood sugar, and it can provide that information to my physician. And so this is one example where I have a personal stake and a personal beneficiary of this, and that literally there are 500,000 health-related apps on today on your smartphone. And so this is a huge area. Just one example, because I do travel in Africa a lot. About 7 years ago, University of Cambridge scientists came up with a $30 gadget that you can put it on your iPhone, and based on the machine learning algorithm, it can detect about 300 eye diseases by a high school trained technician working in a very rural African conditions, better than, almost as good as an MD ophthalmologist. I mean, I'm only talking about the specific diagnostics of these diseases like retinosa pigmentosa and these kind of diseases, and with very minimal investment. And so we keep hearing about such developments very much. And there is a new app that a new gadget FDA has just approved that can detect stroke for the first time. And then personalized patient care. It can predict patient outcomes, suggest personalized treatment plans, improving the overall quality of care. And again, this is an area of tremendous interest to me because we all know how expensive the healthcare system in this country is. It's almost $5 trillion. It's just mind-boggling. We spend more money on healthcare in this country than the overall GDP of India put together and multiplied by 2 times. India is the 5th largest economy in the world. And so we spend more money on healthcare than all of the other 100 next countries and their GDP put together in many ways. So this is the reality, and 17% of our US economy, we spend it on healthcare, and any efficiency that it can bring is really going to help. I know we talk about, the AI AI is not going to replace the doctor, but what it can do is our doctors spend about 65% of their time on useless bureaucratic procedures, literally filling up the paperwork. And AI can help obviate that, many of that. Transcription, every doctor spends about 7 minutes on an average with the patient, and they spend about 4 or 5 minutes transcribing into the system of the summary of their patient interaction, which a ChatGPT with the audio can easily do it. And then drug discovery, so speeds up the drug discovery process. It's incredible in how just about 2 months ago, a paper was published for the first time. An antibiotic was discovered that can treat some of those microorganisms like TB, which were resistant to all the antibiotics. So this was, again, with the help of AI, they were able to do it. And operational efficiency, healthcare facilities, I already talked about medical transcription and patient monitoring, data utilization, record accessibility, and so on. And so one good book I learned about all this, if you're interested, is this called Quantum Care by a Harvard trained Harvard Business School graduate who has a couple of AI-related healthcare companies. It's really not just talks about AI, but also talks about many other advancements that are going on. I never knew that there is an advancement, for instance, where the doctors, along with AI special experts, can create a cognitive digital twin of everyone, and they can experiment on them about what drugs based on the genomic data and pharmacogenomics data and all other health variables of that individual, and see and tailor a specific drug for them. And so we all know about ChatGPT, and so Dr. Hodge mentioned about some of my presentations. So I just wanted to show you like a few things that I did. This morning I showed you I summarized an article, and this is really helpful because I read a lot, and again I'm feeding the whole text to that and coming up with some good points for me would help me. And one other thing I did was just for fun, I asked the ChatGPT to develop a photorealistic image of the campus of Tuskegee University, what it would look like in 2040. And you can see what ChatGPT did over there. And again, I'm showing you some of the elements of that. We also saw in the earlier presentation with deepfake. I want to keep in mind some of the negative implications of these two as we go along. And also, Believe it or not, I'm a big fan of rap songs. I may not fit into the stereotype of a 66-year-old Indian professor, but I asked ChatGPT, can you make a rap song about the title of the team today, social media and AI? And again, you can see it came up with a beautiful verse. You live in a world where few clicks dominate, social media say stage and AI dictates, double-edged sword, da-da-da, and I'm sure you all have played around with it. And then I asked ChatGPT, see, can you make a funny meme?
Excuse me, Dr. Prakash.
Yeah,
We're not seeing what you're saying.
you're not seeing? Oh
No,
my
no,
God.
no. We just have the whiteboard that says chat.
Okay, okay. Were you able to see my
No, we didn't even see we see this part about
okay.
showcasing
I'll
general.
go. So I'm glad you. Sorry about that. Again, technology is great when it works, but it doesn't. Then that's where the human intervention helps, right? So this is what they told me the Tuskegee University would look like in 2040. I wish. I I know many of the people in the audience are going to be around 16 years from here, and so they can validate if this is going to be true or not. But again, you can see, this is a way as to how, which is not just about text, it's about images, it's about music. And again, so I asked about a rap song, and you can see how ChatGPT came up with a little rap song. And this is something I'm going to play you a music and how we can create music, and also show you some of the deep fake and how we can even clone my voice that Dr. Hodge was referring to. And again, I'm a very big social media person, and that's one of the reasons why Dr. Hodge invited me. And what I have recognized is, as a person who communicates about very complex science issues, whether it is vaccine hesitancy or global warming or the use of technology in developing medicine, these are very complex, nuanced issues. And what I have found is, when I'm trying to address to the general audience using memes, like this is really very, very helpful to me. And ChatGPT is kind of very, it's as you can see, it's not very good in spelling at all. And we heard from the previous speaker too, but it can, it made a meme and I said, okay, come on, not very funny. Do it again and please pay attention to spelling. And it came up with this thing and make a meme about social media and AI. So again, this just is an illustration of the power of the technology. And I just want to move forward to show how it could make a photorealistic image in the meme. And then I want to show how it could make music. So now let me see, because you had a problem going, I'm going to share stop screen and go there again. And so I asked it to make a music about our today's event. And this is a new, just a new app that was just dropped only last week. And it was made by some software engineers who are with Google, and they were involved in a company called D.Min, which is an incredibly powerful tool that is for the first time able to develop protein models, realistic protein models for the first time. So let's listen. I asked this thing, can you just make a music on the ChatGPT, on social media and the AI, and let's listen to it.
Listen up. Social beats blowing screens all day. Alright. Thumbs tap and tails. Sometimes they ain't right. AI bots that judge with no heart or sight. Algorithmic streams not always right. Connect the world, let voices be free, or echo them chambers. What we see, AI might cure some ills with its digital key, or crank up the bias, fuel the discipline. Gotta navigate the good and bad.
Okay, you get the point.
I'm on a mission, see me soar. Hey, just
Okay, so that was it's a program called udo.com, like an audio. You just remove A and you can just put anything. You just put few words into it. Make a music, telling my wife how beautiful she is, and put her name, and maybe that's one way. Where you could play it on a birthday or something. And so this is one application, and then one of the other applications, it is called voice cloning, and this is it's called 11 Labs. Are you able to see the screen or only white screen, Dr. Hodge? If not, I'll just go there straight and show you how 11 Labs looks like. This is a tool that that generates your voice. So what I did was I just spoke to it for about just a couple of minutes, not even, it's about actually 10 seconds. So, just like when you get your new iPhone, it asks you to train in your voice so it can detect, the Siri can detect. So I just trained that, and I asked it to generate a speech from that. And essentially, this is what it just I just copied and pasted a few things I had written about this particular session today, and so it's.
Hello, I am Dr. Prakash. I am Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Tuskegee University, where I have worked for the past 35 years. I thank Dr. Hodge for inviting me to talk on ethics, social media,
That's technology. So
intelligence, and language bias, emphasizing their intersection and implications, particularly in the context of Black bioethics. My presentation covers various themes, starting with the overview, AI, and its applications in.
Okay, so again, you see, this is voice cloning. It's great. Like, I can think of a lot of positive applications of that. By the way, I can also go up, and there is a button. It can translate that into 35 languages. So it can speak in Japanese. It can speak in Swahili. It's all with the click of a button. So just try it. It's free, 11labs.ai or something like that. Or just Google 11 Lab. So the point I wanted to make was, while this is an incredible technology where you can clone voice, and let's say, for people with voice issues and things like that, this could be God sent, that you could speak if you cannot. And also, I'm trying to make some marketing videos. I'm trying to promote Tuskegee University, and I want to promote to students in Ghana or Kenya. You see, I could make a video and have that translated into that language. But at the same time, this is a terrible tool in many ways, how it has been used by bad actors. They have done, voice cloning of a young teenagers and called her mom, and as if she's speaking that unless she sends $5,000, that she's going to be hurt, and screaming. And I've heard it, and you can go on the YouTube and you can find an instance for that. But at the same time, you can see, and again, in politics, for instance, it's routinely used, and they cloned a voice of Joe Biden, for instance, saying some bad things that he never said. So, literally, you can start a third world war with Putin launching a nuclear missile or something. And so just like this voice cloning deep fake we saw with Tom Cruise, we could also clearly, just taking an image of Dr. Hodge that I'm seeing now, I can just now, within no time, I can make a video of him saying anything that I want. And so that is where some of the thing. But one of the most incredible development that has happened, in fact, even it's so incredible beyond description, that ChatGPT has not even released it to the public, because they have developed a tool called text to video called Sora. So what it does is you just put a few words into the box and it generates an incredible video. And so I just wanted to show an instance of that. Are you able to see the video, Dr. Hodge? Are you able to see the video?
No, we can't see the video.
Okay.
We only see the words. Okay.
Okay. So I'll just go ahead and go straight to the video, because I have a problem in sharing the screen And again, this is all the technology. Okay, so
Road to opportunity is often the road.
That's right. Right, so this is simultaneously really impressive and really frightening at the same time. And it's hit me in ways that I didn't really expect. So do you remember Will Smith eating spaghetti? Do you remember when this was what AI generated videos look like? Remember when we said, okay, this AI stuff is cool and all, but clearly there's a long way to go before there's any need for concern. Well, welcome to the future, people, because this is also an AI generated video. And so is this, completely synthesized out of thin air by computers. This one too. This is not real. Absolutely ridiculous how far we've come in literally 1 year. This does feel like another ChatGPT, Dolly moment for AI. And maybe I'm overreacting because, okay, I'm a video creator. So an AI that's actually doing my job, maybe that feels a little more threatening. So I'm particularly impressed by it, but
so again, Dr. Hodge and others, you can see this is really going to, we're talking about losing jobs, and what it has done is the ChatGPT has literally watched every video that's probably posted on YouTube, and it's watched probably every movie that has been created, and based on that, it has learned itself how to make that incredibly detailed videos. None of the people you saw in that video are real. They are all fake, and all the background has been created by the computer. And so you can also see some of the implications of that, some really wonderful potentiality for like I wanted to create a 1-minute video of a new building, an NIH funded building that I'm building for $8 million. And I wanted to do a 1-minute video of how the building looks like and for fundraising. And I was told that it's going to cost me $9,000 because this is a simulation video. I wanted to show how the building is developing. And I told him, look, if I spend 3 hours on the computer, I can do that video myself. I'm not going to spend $9,000, which is good for me, but it's bad for the person who is going to be depending on that for the livelihood. So anyway, moving forward very quickly, because I know you're going to be, Brett Coppenger is going to be, I just wanted to just showcase how, are you able to see the, if not, I'll just go ahead and share the screen directly and show some of my social media pages. I have, as you can see, about 35,000 followers on Twitter. And so learning many of these tools is very helpful for me. In a way, I have about 55,000 followers on the Facebook. And so, as you can see, I've already posted on the AI doctor in the morning. And then I just came up with a book from Wiley, edited book on omics-based techniques for global food security and things like that. So I talk mostly about science, but I also post a lot of funny pictures and things like this here, sometimes dogs and cats, because I know how to literally appeal to the laypersons with some interesting stuff that is not too sciencey, but at the same time, then able to engage them in a conversation about some of the science issues. And so I'll just move forward and then show that as we indulge in discussion, I want you to be mindful of the tremendous the platform and the social media platform. While it's very useful to convey a lot of knowledge and new ideas and indulge in very civilized discourse, this is also a platform on which a lot of misinformation gets passed around. And it was most evident during the time of COVID, when there was a lot of anti-science, anti-vaccine, and pseudoscientific information that many of you were very, very familiar with. So I hope this is one of the things that we talk about when we look into the effect of social media and AI. And AI would make it worse, because you can just develop a fake video of Bill Gates talking something or a famous doctor, talking something nasty about about the vaccine, and just make it even cloudier and the perception. And so I hope we also, after Dr. Brett Coppenger's presentation, we're going to talk about from the audience and from the panel how what are some of the solutions. So one way that we are involved here at Tuskegee is in trying to influence, see how we can shape the regulatory framework. We heard about from a couple of speakers, this is one important tool that we have in how we can shape the AI research to ensure less racial bias and less ensure that it is not going to exacerbate the health disparity that already exists in this country, and how we can make health more equitable. And so I am a PI for a $500,000 project funded by NIH. It is called Aim Ahead. And you can see this is where we are bringing together some of the smartest people here at Tuskegee University and link them with the University of Texas at Houston. There's a whole school on health informatics over there, and we're working with them to develop policy guidelines and data sharing, access control, regulatory policies, and oversight. So this is the end of my presentation. And again, I wanted to thank Dr. Hodge for giving me this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Prakash. That you you did a great job in both informing and scaring. In the informing side, I was involved with a team from Case Western Reserve University on prosthetics that have deep sensitivity, and the sensitivity is so great that you could in neuroethics, my job was to try to help understand what are the kind of ethical issues there. But they could take the hand and put it behind the screen and pick up grapes and identify what it is and what it felt like and so on without popping the grape. And one of now you was talking about the good and the bad. The good side is the technology is so great that the gentleman that they used in the clinical trials, excuse me, he had us all crying each time we presented. He just bawling the eyes up because he said, for the first time in so many years, he was able to actually hold his wife's hand and feel her hand, and that connected to his body. It was really amazing and exciting. And then he said, here's the downside. And when the clinical trial was over, Dr. Coppenger, and they took the hand back, he said it was like losing his hand all over again. And so that's one of the downsides. Another part of it is the technology to bring about this is so expensive. The first person to get it will be the military, but where the money is pouring right now is in gaming. So the money is in gaming. That's where a lot of the money will come out to make this thing accessible, but not for the people who really need it. So Dr. Prakash, when you talked about that, I just could imagine that I didn't even think about this till you mentioned it, that if you could clone someone's voice, clone someone's voice, and even their words, or they just write the words or type the words, you could have a person who has lost their voice or perhaps has cancer in the larynx or something, who could actually continue to speak to their children in their own voice. So there's some really good positives, but you actually mentioned some really horrible potential negatives. Among them, with the prosthetic hand, is what happens if someone hacks the hand? Right, so you get all this. So for each time, and this is why ethics is so really important in this conversation.
I am not Morgan Freeman. What you see,
You just scared me with that.
Really,
I said Morgan is here.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I thought I was muted because I wanted to put it on the chat. I put one. You mentioned peeling a grape. There is a robot that can do that. And also you mentioned the deepfake video of Morgan Freeman. Because I couldn't show that, I just wanted to put it in the chat. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, thank you. It worked because you tell. I said Morgan is here, and which is part of the blessing and the curse. Okay, so thank you so much, and Dr. Brett Coppenger. So please help us to understand these matters much more clearly. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hey, it sure is my pleasure, and kind of piggybacking on Dean Prakash there, it's really an honor of mine to be part of this forum and have a chance to explore some of these issues. And it's one thing to worry about these things and think about these things and research these things on an individual basis, and I think it's a much more helpful endeavor to do these things in this kind of collective environment. So I do very much appreciate the invitation to participate. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can walk us through a little bit of a presentation. So I trust everybody can see my screen. I am going to be talking today about social media, about artificial intelligence, but then also segueing nicely, given a lot of the things that have been brought up already, into a discussion of testimony. And I'm sure some of you heard from Dr. Hodge's introduction of me. My primary research home is in philosophy, but more specifically in epistemology. So epistemology is the theory of knowledge. So those issues that are most central to me as a researcher and as an academic have to do with, you know, our beliefs, our justified beliefs, and what it is we can really know. So the goal I have for us is really to explore some of those topics hand in hand with this idea of social media and artificial intelligence. And then hopefully by the end of the presentation, tie things back to some of these major ethical themes that have already been brought up. So maybe as a helpful kind of introduction, just to get some preliminaries kind of on the table, I don't really plan in my presentation to include any of the kinds of illustrations that Dean Prakash did such a good job of presenting. So I do understand that many of the presenters have been able to you know, bring up some of these different utilizations of artificial intelligence. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through specific examples. I'm just going to depend on kind of everybody realizing the extent that these technologies have kind of put us in a position of being able to realize. And then secondly, I also just want to take it as granted that many people depend on social media as a primary source of information. So whether that means they're, you know, going to their Facebook feeds to get news, or whether, you know, they're opening up Twitter to get links to articles to read, or, you know, they're following different people on Instagram to get their feedback. It just seems like uncontroversial to me at this point to recognize that many people just depend on social media as a really kind of fundamental source of information. And the presentation, as you're going to see, is really going to critically depend again on realizing that that's the kind of situation that we're in. So a little bit of philosophical background here. So you guys have already heard me say that, you know, philosophy is my academic home. So I do want to get a few things out on the table that will really help everybody understand hopefully where I'm coming from. So the first thing I want to do is just have a quick discussion of exactly what testimony is. So you heard me say that my presentation was on social media, was on artificial intelligence, and ultimately on testimony. And now, you know, for better or worse, we use this word in a number of different ways. And it's not like there's one right usage. It's just that we need to recognize the context that we're in. So we recognize how this word testimony is being used. So if you're in the legal context, when we're talking about testimony, obviously, you know, we're talking about something like what a witness provides after swearing to tell the truth. In a more everyday context, if you're talking about somebody's testimony, you might just be talking about the conversation that person has had. And now in this kind of philosophical context where I'm doing my work, what we mean is really just anything that we are told. And so now notice when we use that very kind of general notion of anything that I'm told, there's going to be lots of different ways that you can be told things, right? So I can be told things in a conversational context, whether that is face to face, like the conversation I had with my wife before going to work, or the conversation that I'm having with you, right? So even though this is virtual, you can hear me talking, you can see me talking. Or we can talk about testimony in terms of the different things that you're told via reading them. So when you read a textbook, when you read one of those books that Dean Prakash recommended, or read any of those other books that our other presenters have brought up, you're getting testimony. Now that's of course not a conversation that you're having. You're reading it, but it's still in this philosophical context way of getting knowledge by way of testimony. And then of course, you could also be told things by way of hearing them, even if that's like a recording or something like that. And then lastly, you can also be told things by being presented with images or video. So again, think of, recordings, documentaries you might watch or something like that. And so as a philosopher, when I'm talking about testimony, and specifically when I'm talking about the knowledge that we get by way of testimony, I have a very large umbrella that I'm trying to capture information from. And so now what I want you to realize is that most of what we believe, if this kind of general notion is understandable, if you're on board with this kind of general notion, is that most of what we believe is related in some way to testimony. So testimony is going to play a critical role in all of our epistemological lives, right? In all of our knowledge frameworks. And then also, notice that what we learn online or through social media is critically going to involve testimony. Because if you're sitting there at your computer and you're reading something on your Facebook feed, or you're watching one of those reels on Instagram or something like this, that's all going to be information that's being delivered to you in a way that we can cash it out by way of testimony. And so the very practical question, and I think practical because this is like a real world pressing issue, given what we just realized from 2.1.1 there, is this question about whether or not testimony is a reliable source of information. So, I mean, again, big picture, tons of what you believe comes to you by way of testimony. So the overarching kind of question I have as an epistemologist is whether or not our beliefs that are based on testimony are justified. And so this then brings us to a question about the evaluation of testimony. And so I have to apologize. This is the philosopher in me that can't help but instead of telling you what I think, I have to tell you what a few other people think. Instead of telling you what my view is, I have to tell you what some other views on the table are. So let me give you some kind of philosophical background. So some of the debates that deal with the evaluation of testimony. So the first debate, I'm just going to zoom in here. The first debate that I want to highlight is a debate between those people that are called reductionists and the non-reductionists. So on the one hand, there are reductionists, and reductionists want to say something like testimony is justified based on an inductive inference. So for example, here's a very simple kind of inductive inference. I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm going to tell you that I have 5 kids, right? So premise 1, Brett says he has 5 kids. And then premise 2, you're committed to this idea that people typically tell the truth. And so if premise 1 and premise 2 are true, then you should conclude that, well, probably, Brett has 5 kids. People typically tell the truth. Brett said he has 5 kids, so probably Brett has 5 kids. And now, importantly, this view is going to depend on you not being aware of any relevant defeaters. So it's reasonable for you to believe that Brett has 5 kids on the basis of Brett's testimony and this premise that people typically tell the truth as long as you're not aware of any defeaters. The non-reductionist view, on the other hand, says that testimony is prima facie justified. So testimony is more like justified until it's proven guilty. It's justified, it's good until we have a reason to doubt it. So on this kind of view, sure enough, here I am saying that I have 5 kids. You're not aware of any defeaters, so it's reasonable for you to believe that I have 5 kids. And now notice, importantly, just like in the case of the reductionist view, this view also depends on this idea that you're not aware of any relevant defeaters. And I'm going to keep circling this because it's going to be a central theme of what I have to say later. So just bear with me. And now if we just proceed a little bit, there's another debate in the vicinity, and this is an orthogonal debate. So it's not like these views all contradict one another. This is another way of making an interesting distinction in terms of evaluating testimony. This is the distinction between those people that consider themselves internalists and those people that consider themselves externalists. So on the internalist view, testimony is going to be justified if you're aware or you have access to the appropriate kind of evidence. So the example in line with what we've been saying is, you guys all heard me say that I have 5 kids. You're aware that you're justified in believing that Brett typically tells the truth. And so then you would be justified in believing that Brett has 5 kids, right? You have all that evidence right there before your consciousness. So you come to that justified conclusion. And now, of course, importantly, this view would also depend on the idea that you don't have a relevant defeater. If you have a defeater, then of course that would turn what was justified into being unjustified. And then lastly here, in terms of this kind of philosophical background, in terms of the internalism-externalism debate, we have the externalist view. And now on the externalist view, testimony is going to be justified as long as it's produced by a reliable belief-forming process, or as long as it's produced as a result of a cognitive virtue. And so in accordance with our example, again, you heard Brett say he has 5 kids, and we might say that since hearing someone say something is a reliable belief-forming process, you would then be justified in believing that Brett has 5 kids. And now, of course, and I'm going to circle it one last time, this belief would only be justified in the absence of defeaters. And so I hope what all of you are kind of in a position to do is to start asking yourself, well, why might we think defeaters are so relevant? So let me highlight some implications here. And so we pointed out that most of our knowledge, if not a bunch of our knowledge, depends critically on testimony. And we've also pointed out, just in those 2 debates that I spent, about 5 minutes discussing, that the analysis of how testimonial justification works is not necessarily easy. But now, hopefully, what you saw was that kind of reoccurring theme. And that reoccurring theme was that essentially everybody in these debates would agree that if we have a reason to doubt that source of testimony, then we have a defeater. We have a reason to be skeptical of whatever it is that we're being told. So just a couple examples to keep the discussion moving forward. Here we are again. Brett says he has 5 kids, but maybe you and I have a bit of a history, and what you've realized about me is that I'm just a horrible liar, right? And now if that's the history that you have with me, then even though I tell you that I have 5 kids, because you think I'm a liar, you're not going to believe any of those words that come out of my mouth, right? And then in a similar vein, we can think of this second example where, sure enough, I say I have 5 kids, and I say all my kids are girls, but, you're my neighbor, and you know that one of the kids that lives at my house is a boy, right? And again, you have a defeater for this testimony that I've claimed, right? You have a defeater for what I've said. And so my question really is, now that we have this kind of epistemological background, now that we have this kind of philosophical background situated, do we have a defeater for testimony that we receive via social media? And now it might not come as much of a surprise, but like Dean Prakash was saying, I'm really worried about artificial intelligence. And so a little bit more philosophical baggage here. There are a couple of attempts that people have made at justifying some of the arguments that we've already looked at. So a couple of theses that are worth paying attention to. So the first one is what's called the psychological effort thesis. And so my friends over in the psychology department always tell me that it's harder to tell a lie than it is to tell the truth. So one kind of motivation we have, one kind of reason we have for thinking people tell the truth is just because it's easier. And we like doing what's easiest. Or at least I like doing what's easiest. So I'm more likely to tell the truth than to tell a lie, because lying actually requires cognitive work in a way that telling the truth doesn't require work. So, we have some reason for supposing, we have some reason for preferring this idea that people typically tell the truth. And then the second thesis is this idea of the difficulty of creating misinformation. And so now notice it is in a very real sense difficult to create something that sounds or looks genuine, that sounds or looks realistic, or that sounds or looks legitimate. So there's a lot of work that we tend to have to involve in creating things that aren't real. So the kind of idea that's coming to my mind are those plagiarized papers that I receive every once so often, where the students, if they just would have put the amount of work they tried to put into plagiarizing correctly, into writing an original paper, they would have had a decent paper, right? Or I think of some of the photos that I've tried to Photoshop, to make myself look a little bit thinner or something like that, right? It requires a certain kind of skill. It requires a certain kind of effort to make it look like it's not Photoshopped. And now, hopefully, again, it's not coming as much of a surprise, but what artificial intelligence is doing is really causing trouble for both that psychological effort thesis and the difficulty of creating misinformation thesis. So what artificial intelligence has done is made the creation of what looks genuine or what looks realistic or what looks legitimate incredibly easy. And these are exactly the kinds of things that some of the other speakers showed, that Dean Prakash walked us through. And now, this really is starting to happen in a way that isn't just limited to, say, text creation. So by now, all of us are familiar with ChatGPT. So if you crack open ChatGPT, you can ask it, you can prompt it to give you something like an article in the style of the New York Times that says Trump has admitted his guilt in the current hush money trial, right? So we all know Trump's in a courtroom in New York right now. So what we could do is have ChatGPT generate what sounds like a very legitimate New York Times article with just a few keystrokes. We wouldn't have to type the thing up. We could let ChatGPT type it up, and it would sound real. It would sound genuine. But it doesn't just stop with text generation. As we've seen, there's also image generators. So we could ask an image generator to show me a picture of former President Trump in handcuffs being led out of a New York courtroom. And that would be incredibly easy for us to produce because we're not doing the work. Artificial intelligence is doing the work now. And of course, I mean, you know where I'm going. It doesn't just stop at images either, right? We could have audio generators generate audio of Trump. And of course, I mean, a Trump voice saying, "I'm guilty," right? And I mean, we could put it all together with a video generator where ultimately what you have is former President Trump coming out of that courtroom or sitting in a holding cell or something like that, saying I'm guilty, right? And now all of this could be easily plastered on social media. And I hope what you're seeing is we have a kind of perfect storm, right? So we're in a situation, or at least we're very close to a situation where, because of social media and artificial intelligence, we're going to be inundated with information and misinformation. So the problem, as I see it, is that it's going to be incredibly difficult to distinguish information, legitimate testimony, good testimony, from misinformation, from that bad testimony. And now the difficulty in distinguishing information from misinformation isn't really a new problem, but given the technologies we have now, it's a bigger problem. So, it wasn't that long ago that I was trying to walk my parents through how to distinguish a legit email from a phishing email, right? And it wasn't that long ago that I was trying to walk my kids through distinguishing legitimate websites from illegitimate websites. But now where we are is in a situation where, we have the text, we have the images, we have the audio, we have the video, and all of it looks as good as reality, right? It's indistinguishable from the real world. And so now notice, whether you're a reductionist or a non-reductionist, whether you're an internalist or an externalist about testimony, my worry as an epistemologist is that we all have a reason to doubt the legitimacy of whatever it is you see or you read or you hear online. And this is a serious problem when we think about how much information we get through social media, through online. And so notice, we should realize that artificial intelligence presents us with the potential for the easy creation of misinformation that can be broadly distributed through social media. And this realization should make all of us skeptical of what we read and what we hear or what we see online. And so now let me just make sure we're on the same page. So when I say we should be skeptical, I'm not gonna go so far as saying we should think it's false or we shouldn't believe anything. But we have a reason to doubt, right? We have a reason to be skeptical. We have to be careful as information gatherers. And this really brings me to the last point that I want to make. And so these are the implications, both epistemological and ethical. And so you might be wondering, look, why is it that these concerns about information are legitimate concerns? Why is Brett so hung up on these things? And now I want to tie things as closely to home as I can, given our current context, and then also try and make a more broad point. So all of us are very familiar with the syphilis study, and now one way of cashing out what was happening in this study is that you have people who are predominantly featured in a situation where they're lacking critical information, right? They're not being given information that they ought to be given, right? Most obviously about the availability and the efficacy of penicillin. In addition, of course, there's the whole other ethical dimension of things involving consent, issues like that, right? But at least one way of capturing part of the problem of that USPHS syphilis study was that we are misusing information, right? And so think about that ethical implication in terms of the use or the misuse or the miscreation of information in a broader context. And so given the kinds of situations I've outlined, what we should be worried about is that the possibility of information or the lack of information or misinformation is going to be weaponized. And so while this possibility is not new, what artificial intelligence has done, if I'm right, via social media, is made this problem especially worrisome. It's much easier now to create this misinformation than it ever was before. And people have a much broader audience now than they ever had before because of social media. And so just as was the case with what actually happened in the syphilis study, there's a clear possibility of people misleading targeted groups through the production and distribution of misinformation. And this is exactly why we have to be so careful about the ability to detect and recognize information, the lack of information, and misinformation. I'm going to go ahead and just throw up on the screen some references. So you can see both some historical and some contemporary things. But with all of that said, just one last time, I want to thank Dr. Hodge for the invitation to speak here. And I do truly hope that you can see why somebody who's an epistemologist sees the radical ethical implications of artificial intelligence, social media, and exactly these issues that we've been discussing today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coppenger. I am so glad that you were, well, not last, but you're the penultimate speaker, because if you were first, it would have been even more terrifying. When President Bush said that there were weapons of mass, or was told that the weapons of mass destruction in the bunkers, any epistemologist would say, why should we believe that?
Where's the evidence?
Exactly. Where's the evidence? You're just saying stuff, you're just rapping. And now what you just put before us is that you've made it such that that is the question. We have to interrogate everything, because teaching epistemology in philosophy class with young students, and you give them different ways to think about how epistemology, how what we know can be questioned or challenged, and we say stuff about the dream argument, and we feel ooh, excited they get that. Or we talk about hallucinations or different things. We say, oh, they get that. And they say, but somehow reality and the dream are different in some ways. Now, the problem with AI is that when Dr. Prakash just played that thing of him speaking that was AI generated, if he didn't tell us, we would not have known. And
yeah,
so,
this isn't an abstract problem. This is a real world problem, right? We don't have to imagine these scenarios. These scenarios are in front of us right now.
yeah, so it's very interesting how we're going to tease out. And so what Lachlan was pushing on earlier in terms of breaking it down to what's practical and what's in your face and like what's real world, then how are we going to taper down the to get the benefits? Because we do want the benefits. I mean, like
Yep.
I think I just mentioned what Dr. Prakash mentioned, and what the, Paul Whoopi and John Benjamin mentioned. We do want these benefits, but at the same time, the risk are so scary and dangerous. If we are having hacking into what was it a couple weeks ago? Was it AT&T? If you have these hacking into AT&T, now what can a person do? Dr. Prakash mentioned something about if somebody calls you and with your children's voice or your child's voice and saying something dangerous. What if what if a student is upset because of a grade and call your spouse with the AI? It could be some real problems. So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, gentlemen, I'll hang around as Dr. West comes to us now and gives us the last presentation for today, and then we should see if we have any more questions. Dr. Gwendolyn West, my dear friend. Dr. West, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone, and I am so excited today because I've heard a lot of important stuff. And when it comes to communications, I'm just taken aback. Now, I think that you probably saw me moving around. I'm still at work, and I've been working with high school students, and we've been doing standardized testing, and I'm using the computer. And they did some funky thing with the computer, but we must go on. Okay, so without any further ado, I am going to share my screen. and go right ahead into what we are. Okay. Oh, give me 1 minute. I thought I was ready. Okay. Okay, so when I got the text from Dr. Hodge, and I want to again say thanks very much for inviting me to do a talk on ethics, social media, artificial intelligence, and language biases. I am Dr. West, and I'm coming to you live from Miami, Florida. And it's really nice and warm here. And it's a place, if you haven't been here, you might want to visit. Now, this topic is fascinating and it's multifaceted, and AI is already been used widely across the world to communicate on a daily basis. But despite of concerns about AI's negative effects on society, the social consequences on using it to communicate remains widely unexplored. So it's a good thing if we delve into this and do our best on learning from AI and learning about AI and what to do about it. But I'm challenged today with 3 questions. Those questions are, how is social media a public health and bioethics hazard? Can social media be a conduit to a positive relationship? And what is the association between social media, AI, empathy, and care? Okay, now you see my little, if you can see those little gadgets up at the top. I put those there because my first encounter, of anything remotely um, AI or robotic was when I was a little girl. I would run home, would get up on Saturday mornings rather, and run to see this cartoon that was called The Jetsons. And they had this maid, she was a robot called Rosie. And then it was another show that came on television that was called Lost in Space. And then there was another robot there, and I believe his name was Robbie. So I got them in the corner so they can give me this courage, because it's not easy to talk in front of people. So thank you, and thank you for bearing with me. Now, the 6 things, and I hope I have a little time to do this, that we're looking at when it comes down to social media, to deal with public health and is it a public health or a bioethics hazard? So we're going to look at 6 things, and one is miscommunications, which one of the presenters talked about already, mental health, privacy concerns, cyberbullying, influence on health behaviors, and filler bubbles. Okay, so misinformation, we like one of our presenters said that we had a lot of misinformation when it went during COVID, with when people were saying to take the shot, not take the shot, if you drink Clorox or some of those other things that you can cure COVID, get rid of COVID. But the social media platform is a breeding ground for information as it relates to health issues. And it is leading to spread false narrative, false information about diseases, treatment, and preventative measures. And this can have serious consequences on public health and by influencing people's decisions and behavior. Now, according to the National Institute of Health, the scientific community recognize that media, and most recently social media, play a key role in public understanding of environmental risk. So there are risks when it comes down to participating with social media. Now, as Lauren Abrams said, she expressed that social media platforms has become a vital part of the fabric of American life. Mostly everyone in America now has some type of social media, and they check it on a daily basis. She also said that as a public health professional, as public health professionals, we need to better understand the positive and the negative implications that on social media. These concerns, they go far beyond protecting public policies, which is to focus on current regulatory efforts. And just as we have shaped to build the environment by legislating an inclusive sidewalk to increase walkability in a neighborhood, just like we plan out our neighborhoods and have sidewalks and parks, we also must consider the structure of social media and find ways to alter them when it comes down to promoting health. Now, another thing that has happened through social media is mental health. If we could see today, I work with a lot of high school students on a daily basis. And all day, every day, they are glued to the phone. Now, our governor, he has outlawed phones in the classrooms, but it's a fight all day, every day to get the kids not to use their phones on social media. And there is a huge platform that they're using nowadays, which is TikTok, all day long, every day. And I heard on the radio on the way into the office this morning that that they're quickly trying to ban TikTok to be used in America. So when I got in this morning, I asked my students, what do you think of that? That they're thinking about banning TikTok being used in America. And the first thing they said, why, miss? Because you older people use Facebook. You're always on Facebook. Okay. And I kind of agree. Older people use a lot of Facebook and Instagram, and they're on their TikTok website. But according to the National Institute of Health, excessive use of social media has been linked to mental health issues, such as anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Now, how many times that we watch the news and we see some kid has committed suicide because of what someone said about them? Often, because it relates to cyberbullying, exposure to negative content on the internet, And they can, especially young people, they can, hold that in and think about it all day. And before you know it, they're dealing with depression, they're dealing with mental health issues. And also, social media is responsible for aggravating this mental health problem. Well, human beings as a whole, we are social creatures. We require companionship with others to make our life progress. And being socially connected with one another can relieve some of this stress, can relieve anxiety and sadness. But the lack of connection can sometimes pose some serious risk in mental health. So this is the reason why a lot of young people and adults even use social media for companionship. I can remember a few years ago, I live in Miami, like I said, but the majority of my family lives in Georgia. And when my mother, during her aging process, she was living alone, and I would often call my sisters and say, hey, would you go visit mom a little often? Because I knew without human connection, loneliness, depression, can set in and cause a few issues. So getting back to social media has recently been a part of people's daily activity. And many of them spend hours and hours a day on Messenger, Instagram, Facebook, and other popular sites. According to PubMed, there is no denying that social media has now become an important part of many people's lives. All day long, text message. There once was a time that we did not have this type of communication at all. If we wanted to contact someone, we would have to go to the phone or the pay phone or the beeper. But now there is a phone, not only a phone, there is internet at our disposal. So we can use it at any time for anything. Another concern that we have is privacy concerns. Now that's a big one because people can do anything at any time. In Miami, there is a huge problem with fraud, that people can take your information, they can steal your property. I mean, this is in the news for our city all the time, where someone has taken advantage of an elderly person by just going on the internet and filling out a quitclaim deed, and there you go. She don't have her house anymore. So it takes years and a lot of money to repair those type of things. So social media platform often collects and tracks the data of the people that's using these sites. And there is concerns about privacy and data security. Unauthorized access to sensitive health information shared on social media can also lead to an ethical dilemma and breach of confidentiality. Now, there was a Pew Research done, and it says that Americans have little faith in social media. And they also have little faith that the executives will protect the users' privacy. Now, isn't that something? Every time you turn around, I mean, I have social media myself. I use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I'm all the time I'm getting a tweet or a Facebook message from one of my friends saying that they have lost money, or could you send me some money or whatever. And when I see those type of things, I'll probably pick up the phone and call and say, hey, did you just send me a Facebook message? And the answer all the time is no. They have been hacked. Okay, and there was another study found that the majority of Facebook's users feels that their data is not, that the companies, they are not governing their data. They're not protecting their data. And then there's nothing that we can do about it. Unless we want to not use this type of medium. And if we do, we may lose communications with a whole lot of people. Another type of problem that we come across on social media is cyberbullying, which is a big issue when it comes to young people. They bully all day, every day, and sometimes not even knowing, not even aware that they are doing it. And this type of thing can have a really, it's a really big problem, harassing, each other, and they become this victim of bullying, which lead to all types of different complications. Now, according to another Pew research, nearly half of the teens in the United States between the ages of 13 to 17 have been bullied or harassed online. They are harassed about their physical appearance, being seen as a relative reason why they're being bullied. Now, older teens, especially girls, are likely to report that they've been bullied. And from our research, from one of the Pew researchers, they said that Black girls most of the time won't report it at all. The risk of Black kids reporting that they've been bullied is less likely than a Spanish or a Anglo kid. The internet creates not only a threat to teens who could fall victim to cyberbullying, but also the potential for children to engage in online crime themselves, trolling and cyberbullying themselves. In my classroom, a lot of times when I ask a child, what do you want to be when you graduate from high school? And they jokingly say, oh, I'm going to be a scammer. A scammer. And how is that possible? Scamming how? Oh, it's easy, miss. You can go online and there's a lot of ways that you can get someone's credit card number. Now, that's a crime in itself. And with the minds not being, grown up, you're not old enough to understand that that is a crime. When you see it all the time, your family, your friends, or whoever that they're around possibly are doing these things. So this is something that we have to look at when it comes down to social media and how children are being influenced and how they go into the adult life, in the future. Another area that I looked at was the influence on public health behavior. I mean, there is not a place we can go now where people are not talking about the BBL, because our movie stars and our people of notoriety, they're having these surgeries to change their bodies to make themselves different, look different. And it has a social media influencers, those that say, oh, I did this type of thing, and they're promoting BBLs and diet pills and diet food and all types of things to make their bodies, look a little different. Social media has a huge, they promote this unhealthy behavior more times than often. They use different cosmetics procedures, unproven health products, and it leads to the rise of risky health practices among the public. So that is one other way that social media is, not healthy when it comes to augmenting the body. Another way is filter bubbles. Now, filter bubbles is social media algorithms can create some type of filter bubbles where users are only exposed to content that aligns with their belief and preferences. So if I believe so much in one thing, these filter bubbles are going to steer me toward that type of belief. And this could lead to what we call echo chambers. And it hinders the critical thinking for young people, and I mean, even for anyone, because when we don't do a thing often, we'll tend to forget. I used to be the world's best when it came to remembering numbers. I knew everybody's number in my family. So now I don't know anyone's number. I don't remember anything. And then when these filter bubbles can cause me to think what I like best is what is true and what is sound and what is perfect. But a lot of times that may not be necessarily true. And overall, while social media has the potential to be a valuable tool for promoting health and education, it also presents significant challenges in the term of public health and bioethics. It is important for individuals to critically evaluate the information they encounter on social media, and for policymakers to address the ethical implications of social media uses in the content of public health. Okay, can social media be a conduit for positive relationships? Well, the answer is yes. Social media can be a conduit to build positive relationships. Social media platforms provide opportunities for people to connect. Again, I'm in Florida. I have 5 sisters, and I don't see them often. But a good way for me to communicate and they answer right away is to contact them through social media. Even when they don't answer the phone, they answer that social media, that Facebook. When I go on and I see them and I say, hello, how you doing? We chat a little bit, and we can communicate that way. Throughout social media, individuals can stay in contact with friends and they can stay in contact with family. We can meet new people with similar interest and support each other in various ways. Additionally, social media can allow for sharing of positive contents and inspirational quotes and uplifting stories. In Miami, I work with a group of churches to help them to get to social media. During COVID, the churches became what I call barren. No people coming and no people joining. And an easy way to remedy that is by helping them to get on social media. Some of the churches had cameras, some didn't. So we helped them to install cameras in the churches and to learn how to use social media, how to go to Facebook, YouTube, or whatever type of and Zoom, of course, we on social media right now using Zoom in order to get their messages across. This week, I don't know whether you heard it on the news, we had one of our prominent pastors in the area to be murdered in the churchyard. Social media had it before the news. And I turned the news on. I said, hey, this is not on the news. It was social media had it right away. It took our news, our local news, 3 days to get the information to distribute it to the public. So using social media as a conduit for relationships is a vital source. So social media is not all wrong. It can be a vital source for communications. Now, Dr. Hodge, am I almost running out of time? Okay, so I'll go on. So
Well,
what is,
here? Yeah, so you can start wrapping it up so we can go to questions.
okay, so I wanted to go to talk about what is the association between social media, AI, and empathy of care. And that is complex. So social media, we've heard a lot about AI. So, and how do we use, how is this so complex? This social media platform utilizes AI anyway. And sometimes we don't know when social media is using AI. It enhances the user's experience, and it personalizes the content and improve the engagement. But a lot of times that may not be AI, that may be just some form of the algorithms analyzing the data and looking at your behavior in order for you to know what's supposed. Another area associated between social media is empathy care in social media, feeling what that person may be feeling at the time they're posting something on social media. You know, a lot of people like to come on social media to air out maybe their grievances or what they may be feeling. May not be the best thing, but that may be the only way that they can communicate. And being able to feel what that person is feeling and caring about how they feel about a thing. Okay, so digital empathy, some people can be really hard when it comes down to feeling what you feel. Sometimes you may post something on the internet, on the Facebook or Instagram, and people may not agree with and may not be empathetic at all. One great thing during COVID, social media was another conduit for the healthcare. Doctors now did more telecalling, teleappointments than any other time, either through you're inboxing you or using Zoom or some other form of social media to care for us doing COVID-19. So AI and empathy care, AI has the potential, as we said, to enhance empathy and care in social media. And in summary, the association between social media, AI, empathy, and care is evolving as technology continues to shape online interactions. By leveraging AI's responsibility and incorporating empathy and care into social media practices, we can create a more supportive and compassionate online community. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I pray that we get involved more with our social media efforts. Okay, I am going to share. I'm trying to not share, okay?
I'm sorry, I take care of it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. West. Thank you so much, Dr. Coppenger. Thank you so much, Dr. Prakash. And of course, thank you so much, Lachlan. So now we've come to the close of today's conversation, and each person kind of touched on the other person's presentation. So I appreciate the synergy there, because as Dr. Wolpe pointed out, and Benja and Lachlan Furrow, is that this thing is huger than could have been imagined about 10 years ago, and it's moving extremely fast. And Dr. West, the way you ended there is just perfect, because the question of how do we apply empathy and care, in ethical terms, to AI, which is so extremely broad, is a challenge. But these conversations have to continue. So I want to give, as we close this out, first of all, as we close this out, I want to give Dr. Prakash, Dr. Coppenger, Dr. Furrow, and Dr. West here as well, if there's any last words. I saw I want to say this, Dr. Lachlan Furrow, I want to thank you. Yeah, I see Dr. Coppenger. Dr. Prakash, I want to, Prakash, Dr. Lachlan Furrow, I want to thank you for answering some of those questions in the chat box. That made it quite a bit easier. Okay, thank you so much. Are there any other questions that there's any question that I'm missing? Let's see. I think like Dr. Furrow got them all, so that's good. Okay, so now, what final words do each of you want to give pertaining to the section that you presented on? Just 1 or 2 sentences of what are good next steps, because this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end.
I'll just go ahead first. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Lachlan.
No, I was just going to, I asked ChatGPT a question, but I'm not all that interested in what ChatGPT says, and there's not a simple answer. But for all of you, Dr. West, Dr. Coppenger, Dr. Prakash, and others, I think we need to all imagine, and it takes some imagination, grounded in reality, what it is that the National Center can contribute. I think one of the main ways is not the National Center itself doing things, that's Dr. Hodge and a few people, but just as a hub, as a coordinating group, contribute to having the humanity with AI be evolving, rather than have AI thwarting the humanity and the values that all of you talked about being important. That's not, I'm not asking for an answer now, but Dr. Hodge and all of us want to build from the conversation today, and there'll be some more tomorrow, and then try to end up as focused, maybe very narrowly, on a couple things in this great world that the National Center at Tuskegee University can add to all the people that are working on this. That's the question, not easy to answer right now.
Thank you very much. And I echo Dr. Lachlan, and so that's again a technology. Sorry about that. So this is the technology. I think every technology is like the Greek mythical figure Janus. It has two faces. Whether we look at the smartphone that I just had to keep away because of a scam call that I got now, the internet, the computers that you're all using to participate in that, we almost can't live without these days. We wonder how I even traveled around the town without the GPS anymore because I'm so dependent on it. And so I am moving forward with a cautious optimism on AI because I do believe if we harness the power of AI in a responsible manner, like we are doing today, bringing all the experts and talk about it and see how we can guide the future of it, I believe that can bring some good to the humanity. I'm someone from the developing world. I know the medical conditions back home in India, and I've traveled across Africa, and I am very confident that this technology can be a great equalizer in some ways to bring some of the benefits of medicine to the underrepresented populations around the world, and here again in the United States too. But at the same time, I am not a very naive optimist, because I also recognize that there are tremendous challenges and the problems and that it brings, and that is with any technology. We know it has a good and a bad, and I think it is up to us to see how if we can understand the technology, if we can know about it, then we could be participants in shaping. I also heard that ChatGPT is probably not going to take all the jobs away. The AI is not going to take all the jobs away. It is the people who know how to use the AI are going to take your jobs away. So I think we have a responsibility here also to ensure that the community that we serve here in Tuskegee, we serve the underrepresented community. 95% of our students are African Americans, and we are going to be starting a bachelor's course in data science with emphasis on AI starting this fall, because I know I want my students to be equal players in these high-paying jobs and also to be at the controlling towers in shaping the destiny of this technology.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I'll just jump in, and I think, going back to the previous remark there, in terms of what the Bioethics Center maybe ought to be doing, I think one kind of idea worth keeping in mind is that as a general rule, we can trust that these for-profit companies will do a decent job of publicizing the benefits of their technologies. It's also critical that somebody publicizes the limitations of the technologies. And so like Dean Prakash was saying, I don't think ChatGPT or artificial intelligence more generally is inherently bad. But I think it needs to be understood. And so that means both understanding the positive benefits, but also understanding the drawbacks. And so one of the things that the Bioethics Center could take a lead on is not only recognizing how these technologies can benefit society, but also where these technologies are going to come up short. And it's having that kind of balanced approach that I think would be really helpful to a general audience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coppenger. Appreciate that. Thank you. Dr. West?
Yes, so first of all, I would like to say that I feel like a small fish in a big pond among you great men, and being the only woman on the panel today. And it's amazing that Dr. Hodge asked me to talk about social media because Miami, Florida, is now trying to figure out how to use AI, social media in the classroom, at the same time getting rid of the phones. That is going to be a challenge. So that, like you said, there is a lot of work to do. And we have to, move full stream ahead so that we can accomplish things for the future, for our tomorrow.
Thank you very much. And with that being said, and we are right at our end time, And Dr. Coppenger, I got you right here, I think, at the right time. So thank you very much, each and every one of you. Just remember that tomorrow we